Welcome to the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Monday, May 1st. This is Gina McGuire. Over the last 24 hours, we've only seen light amounts of precipitation across Idaho into northeast Nevada, northern Utah, and Wyoming. However, over the last 7 days, the precipitation has again been concentrated over the northern half of the Great Basin, and what we've seen in the far north has been above normal. Over the last 30 days, above normal precipitation has continued to occur in parts of the Sierra and across northern Nevada up into Idaho and western Wyoming and the far northern part of Utah, with well below normal precipitation over the southern portion of the Great Basin. The satellite loop from this morning shows a strong ridge of high pressure off the west coast, with zonal flow over the Pacific Northwest, which will allow storm systems to move into northern and far eastern sides of the Great Basin over the next couple of days. However, the ridge will keep warm and dry conditions over southern and western areas. Now looking at the ventilation index for today, we'll see good dispersion across most areas of the Great Basin, with the exception of the higher elevations of the Sierra into parts of northwest Nevada and the higher elevations of Idaho and Wyoming. Looking at the individual components of the ventilation index, transport winds on the left show some gusty winds generally over parts of southwest Nevada, but really across the rest of the Great Basin, light to moderate winds will continue. Mixing heights will remain very high over southern and eastern areas of the Great Basin and a little bit lower near that ridge of high pressure in the far west. As we move into Tuesday, again, the strong ridge of high pressure remains over the west coast. However, over the top of the ridge, we'll continue to see some moisture move across into far northern Nevada, Idaho, and Wyoming, bringing some showers, again, in the far northern part of the Great Basin. However, dispersion will still remain fairly good in most areas with the exception of the very high elevations in the west and north. Winds on Tuesday will be a little bit breezier across the eastern and northern side of the Great Basin as that next upper level wave moves across, however still light to moderate in most areas. Mixing heights, very high in most locations except for the higher elevations of Wyoming, Idaho, and parts of the Sierra. As we move into Wednesday, the ridge starts to become a little bit more amplified across the west, pushing those storm systems further north into Idaho, with mainly dry conditions across most of the Great Basin. We may see a few cumulus buildups in the Sierra as we get these warm temperatures now, more of a summer-like pattern with clouds building over the higher terrain. Ventilation indices will decrease as we move into the middle of the week and that ridge pushes eastward with lighter winds, so we will see poor dispersion in the north and west and still good dispersion further south. Looking at the transport winds on Monday, again as that ridge moves in, winds will become fairly light in all areas with the exception of far southern Nevada, the Arizona Strip, and southern and eastern Utah, where there may be some breezy winds between 20 and 30 miles per hour at times. However, again, no real strong winds expected through this week. Looking at mixing heights, high mixing heights over the southern and eastern half of the Great Basin, and a little bit lower as you move further north and west. Looking at the Utah Forecast Clearing Index for the next 3 days, and we will see generally high clearing indices through the week. However, as we get towards Wednesday, we'll see clearing indices decrease over the higher terrain of central Utah and up in the north. Overall forecast amount of precipitation over the next 3 days, again only light amounts of precipitation across parts of the northern areas of the Great Basin as those weak systems over the top of the ridge move across those areas. Otherwise, dry conditions elsewhere. As we move into the end of the week and through the weekend, this ridge of high pressure moves eastward. This will again bring mostly dry conditions and well above normal temperatures to the Great Basin, where high temperatures will be 10 to 12 degrees above normal. However, on the backside of this ridge, we will see some moisture move in to the Sierra and far western Nevada on Thursday for again potentially some buildups or even showers or thunderstorms in the higher elevations. Ventilation indices will remain very good over the northern and west side of the basin, however, will be much lower underneath the ridge of high pressure over Utah into Wyoming. On Friday, this ridge finally moves eastward and we get more into a stormy pattern across the west where we have systems moving through every few days. So we will have some showers and thunderstorms potentially over parts of the northern half of Nevada into Idaho on Friday. And again, as this storm system moves in, winds will start increasing towards the end of the week, and also we will see good dispersion. By Saturday, this area of low pressure starts to drop south along the west coast, and this will allow for greater areas of showers and thunderstorms over the Sierra into western and northern Nevada and across the northern Great Basin. Again, ventilation indices will remain good as we go through the end of the week and the weekend as this next storm system moves in. On Sunday, the area of low pressure drops further south, still keeping a band of showers and thunderstorms over mainly the eastern half of the Great Basin as we go into the early part of next week, with still very good dispersion. Overall forecast amount of precipitation on days 4 and 5, which takes us from Thursday morning through Saturday morning, again points at only some light amounts of precipitation over the northern half of the area, but again, as we get later in the weekend into early next week, we will see moisture returning to other areas. And this paints that picture in the 8 to 14 day outlook, looking towards the second week of May, a return to those below normal temperatures over the southern areas of the Great Basin and above normal precipitation, especially over the eastern half to 2/3 of the Great Basin. That concludes our briefing for today. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you for listening.